All right, and I'll share my screen again. Okay. All right. So the purpose of this is just to give everybody some information about Act 158 in general, where our students kind of fall in the pathway areas that are offered through Act 158, like where will most of our students be going? And then just to kind of show you quickly what programs we have that help our students reach their pathway goals within Act 158 so that they can graduate. Okay. So, okay. So this is, there is a link in here, and I'm going to give everybody the slides, but what you're seeing here, there's the slides in chat if you'd like to jump in. So what you're seeing here is explaining that there's 5 pathway options, but we're not going to focus on all of them. If you want to take a closer look at the full pathway guide provided by the state, you can click on the link that's in the slides in red. But today we're going to focus on evidence-based pathway, which is the pathway that primarily most of our students will be on. Aside from those who do pass the keystones, then they don't have to worry about this at all. They've passed, they're graduating, all is good with the world. So this is just what we're going to focus on today. And again, if you'd like to explore more of the different, go ahead. Is somebody saying something?
Okay.
Oh, is somebody in the waiting room? Sorry, hang on, let me go in there. Oh, you're right. I see him. I don't know why it didn't pop up. Let me click
Yeah,
that
they
button
see him,
again.
Janine.
I got it. Sorry. Thanks. I don't know why it was
So
doing
can I
that
just
for me.
ask one question?
Sure.
Even though they pass the keystones,
Mhm.
they don't have to do community service?
Technically, we don't require that. The only other requirement is the job shadowing, as
Right.
of right
So,
now, to my knowledge. Yeah.
but we
So
require that, like that's one of the pathways, right?
job
The,
shadowing,
no, the 10 hours of community service.
that's only required if they need to be in one of these in this evidence-based pathway
Right.
if
Right.
they did not pass the keystone. So if they
Yeah.
pass the keystones, they technically don't have to do any of this. Now, if they're excelling, then yes, we should still offer them some of these opportunities. And we can get a little bit more into that in a minute. But yeah, so the quick answer is no, they don't have to do it. But if they want to do it, then that's only going to benefit them and what they're planning on doing maybe after high school. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So this screen here, hopefully everybody can still see this. Within the evidence-based pathway, when you open up that full guide, what you're going to see on the right-hand side on the second page is this section here, evidence-based. In this section, students have to complete a total of 3 artifacts, and it's a combination of these 2 sections, these pictures that you can see in the slide. So it's 1 or more from this first section. Oh, sorry. And then no more than 2 from section 2. So you have to combine those 2 or just work off of 1, depending on what it is, to get your students to get 3 of those items completed. Now, I will say that the counselors are spearheading this. However, they're really going to need your help. Does this pertain to PASA? So that's a really great question. I believe the answer is no, but I need to get some clarification on that because I think if they are PASA, we may still require it because we try to hold, high standards as a school, but I believe the state is a little more lenient with those types of students. So in showing leniency, I believe that they'll let the students graduate off of their IEP, but I need to get clarification on that. So I don't
Yeah,
want to say for sure,
the chart
unless
here,
someone else knows for
the,
sure.
the chart here has a IEP section that says a student with a disability who's unable to satisfy pathway requirements, but who completes a special education program is granted a diploma.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the answer is probably yes then. Now, if the student, just because they're taking PASA, doesn't necessarily mean, maybe it does, majority, right? But doesn't always mean that they can't do these things, right? So if we think the student is capable, whether they're PASA or not, I would encourage you to encourage them to try and do some of these things. I think it's case by case really for these types of situations. But if you have a student that you feel can't do any of these things, didn't pass the keystones, that's when we need to get the principal and the counselor involved and just make sure that we know what their pathway is, whether that's just graduating off their IEP or not. We definitely need some clarity on that. So if you do have a student, Amy, I would set up just a quick meeting. You could toss me in there if you want, and maybe Stephanie, and we'll just decide, what we think is best for that, that specific student, if that makes sense there. Yeah, service learning are really actually great opportunities. Absolutely. I see that in the chat. Okay, so in these two sections, we're going to kind of get into what we offer a little bit more at PA Distance that can help satisfy these. So section 1, this is if a student takes the SAT or the ACT or any kind of an AP exam, successful completion of concurrent enrollment or post-secondary course, or an industry recognized credential. So that's essentially dual credit and certification. That fifth item down in section 1. So we do offer a lot of things in that area. So in section 1, you could do one or more things. So if you have a kid who wants to do dual credit and also wants to do an industry certification, you've already completed 2 things. They could also even do 2 industry certifications and also dual credit. So that's 3 items. They're done if they've done all those things, and now they can successfully, walk that pathway and graduate high school. So that's just one example, but you can combine to get what you need for your kids. A lot of the counselors are doing in section 2 and section 1, at the bottom of section 1, a lot of counselors are getting acceptance letters from 4-year colleges, but the kick is that they have to be aligned with their pathway. So the letter has to say like what area they're going to focus on when they get to school. So is it business? Is it education? What do they want to do? It can't just be a blanket letter or the state won't accept it. So there is a little caveat there. And then another thing that they're doing a lot with their students is in section 2, the 3rd item down, the letter for full-time employment. A lot of our counselors are working closely to try and get that. So those 2 things are probably the easiest to get because it doesn't require the student to do anything other than get a signed letter. So those are things that the counselors are focusing heavy on right now. And then also dual credit. And we're trying to really, we're trying to get dual credit more up and running, but they're giving a lot of students opportunities to do the OSHA certification, which covers under section 1 for that industry recognized credential. Now, to your point, Amy, I think you said this about service learning. Teachers are trying to get involved to help with this as well. So trying to do service learning, we're really trying to get the teachers to really participate to help with these efforts, because you do need 10 hours in the same location. You have to have a community sponsor. So you have to be working with someone in the community, and you have to get approval for your project. So like counselors and principal officially has to approve whatever the service learning project is. That's what the guidelines say for the state. So that can get tricky. So we want to give them the opportunities, but we got to make sure that they're following those procedures. Now, they don't give you like a ton of specifics. You can kind of take the reins with it. But the biggest thing is working with a community member, 10 hours, and then you have to have some kind of follow-up paper or project. Those are the 3 strict things about service learning, which essentially is I'm losing my train of thought. It's essentially community service. I don't know why they changed the wording. We were just talking about this yesterday. It's causing some confusion, but service learning is community service. So I just want to like throw that out there too. Okay. So let's keep going. And if you have more questions, we can get to them maybe if we have some time at the end, or unless there's something right now that anybody wants to ask that they feel would be helpful for the group, then let's do that too. Anybody have anything they want to add?
They can also apply to a community college. The only thing is like it can't say general studies. It has to say like something like they're going to major in writing or something.
Yeah, you're correct. I think on there it says like, let me see. It says 4-year program. So community colleges have 4-year programs. So yes, Val is correct. That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up because a lot of our kids are probably going to go that route. So that's a good point. Anybody else? All right. And you can just feel free to, if I don't see you waving your hand or anything, just jump in. Okay, let me go to the next one here. So, and I'm going to go a little more quickly now through these next couple of slides. So bear in mind dual credit and industry certs and also work-based learning. Typically, these are only offered to 11th and 12th grade students. In fact, the colleges won't even permit students in younger grades to take courses, and it's in the contracts or agreements, whatever you want to officially call them, that we have with these colleges and universities. So it actually says 11th and 12th grade, or it says something like not younger than an 11th grade student, something like that. So anyway, so dual credit is what we're pushing because if everybody remembers, we have a grant now. The grant only qualifies for dual credit. Dual credit is when students are getting credit in both high school and college for taking courses that align with their pathway. So if a kid's taking like English 101 or a course that we have similar here, that does not count as dual credit. That's dual enrollment. So to use the monies for the grant, we have to get them to qualify under dual credit. So they have to really take courses that are more of interest to them versus required courses. That's the best way I think about it when I'm trying to figure out like what classes qualify and what classes don't. And there's a list of our current partners there. This year we added CCAC, CCP, which is only offered to Philadelphia residents. We've had Lackawanna and Luzerne, and then we also added Penn West. And then at the bottom of this slide, on the left side, you'll see a dual credit student guide. You can actually share that with your kiddos. It gives them links to check out the colleges and just helps them explore a little bit further. It's a nice conversation piece. You can share your screen if you want. It's a nice visual to show. So I recommend doing that if you definitely have a kid or kids that you think would like to take advantage of this. And then the industry certifications or credentials, students can earn these. And again, this should align with their pathway. So last year, the counselors have to submit all of these requests. So if you think a student is going to want to do either of these things, you have to go to the counselor because they submit a form, which I get, and then I filter through it, make sure that the swag matches the pathway for the student, and then I approve their dual credit or their credential programming. So please make sure that you're working with the counselors because if they don't submit something, it pretty much doesn't exist. And then the student's not going to get these opportunities. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about your kids who might, want to do these things. We have a certification credential program called ICEV, which is a little more robust, a little more challenging, I would say. Students can actually earn a credit though if they do an ICEV full course. So it's kind of a double whammy, which is cool, but it is more difficult. The OSHA credentials, counselors are really pushing those because it takes less time to complete. Both of these are independent programs. However, like I said, ICEV is more difficult and takes longer, but you do get credit for us here at PA Distance, and you'll get that credential through ICEV. OSHA, there's no credit offered at PA Distance for that because it's meant to be a 10-hour course. So we can't legally offer any credit to students, but it's easier for them to get through. And then EverFi, we haven't had any students use this yet. I encourage you just to click on the link in the slide and take a closer look at this because these credentials do only cover certain counties and also only cover certain pathways. So if you think a student wants to pursue like business or something like that, you could push them down the EverFi track. They can do the courses whenever they want and they're all self-paced and they don't take very long. If anybody's ever used EverFi, you'll know that it's not super difficult. Like I used to have kids do lessons in there for my career class that I taught, and they actually really liked it. And they can earn a credential by doing 5 specific courses that are listed in that document. So if you think you have a kid, you know, who might be interested, let me just open it up because it might be beneficial just to take a quick look. Sorry, I'm getting over it. I'm always sick with Everly. The 5 courses they have to take are listed right at the top of this document. It's an entrepreneurial course, financial course, a money moves course, a STEM type of literacy, career exploration course, data science, and then they take about 12 hours total to complete. So student won't get credit with us here, but they will get that credential. And you can see on this document, let me make sure everybody has access to this. So it's approved in only the counties listed, and I'll put this in chat so you can see it. And I do see that comment in chat. Let me come back to that in 1 second here, Amy. Do you see that? I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you. So you could see like all the counties, like there's a lot, but it doesn't cover all counties in Pennsylvania. So just be careful, like if you think this is something your kids might want. Okay, let me get out of there for time here. Okay, any general questions? Let me look at the chat here. Let's see. I have a 12th grade student who is currently taking vet science and she wants to be a vet tech after she graduates. Do electives count? What do you mean by that, Amy? Sorry, can you give me some more?
Like
What do you
for
mean?
the dual credit,
Mhm.
can that be a thing she gets dual credit for? Like I'm just, maybe
Well,
I'm
if there's
misunderstanding.
a course at one of these 5 partnerships that we have, like one of these 5 colleges, if
Okay.
she takes a course that aligns with vet science or veterinary studies, then yes,
Oh,
that would count. But she has to take the class like with the college to get that, and then she'll get credit with us and with the school. Does that make sense? Okay,
Hey, Amy, there is a course in OSHA for veterinary science.
thanks, Karen.
awesome. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
So yeah, Amy, thanks, Karen. I would work with your child's counselor. If they haven't already thought about this, which they may have, just help them to see like, hey, I think my kid could do this course in OSHA. If you click on that link in the slide, it'll show you more information about the courses. So it'll help kind of give you like a little guide. And then there was an email that went out. I'll have to find this about how I always forget this, and that's shame on me, but how much credit they get with us if they do complete the dual credit. I always forget the number, and Kelly had just given it to me and I forget again because my brain isn't working, but I'll figure that out too. They don't get, I don't think 3 credits. I think it's like 1, but I'll have to get back to you on that. Okay. Work-based learning. We're already almost out of time. So students can pursue work-based learning if they can locate a business or organization that will sponsor them. They do have to complete the business and the family, student, parent, or guardian has to complete paperwork though that falls within this. So there's contracts, there's clearances, there's several things that are required. I have worked hard to get things up and running in the program we use. They used to be called Transio. It's now called Pathway OS. They revamped the system a little bit. It's a little cleaner to run through now, which is actually beneficial for us. But essentially, if a student wants to complete work-based learning, I'm going to be pushing for them to complete those experiences in the Pathway OS / Transio program. The reason for that is because it houses information about the organization. It houses completed clearances. It's a place where they can directly complete parent and student contracts, employer contracts, any paperwork. They can log hours in there. So it's a really great program that we're just not utilizing to full capacity. Right now, we're using it as a storage bank to just basically keep names and information for organizations and businesses. So we have a missed opportunity here, but as soon as we get students that want to do internships / work-based learning, we can utilize this program, like I said, to full capacity, which I think would be really great. There might be some tweaks along the way, but I have been working on like videos and stuff to help staff, like a cheat sheet, like once we actually get ready to do a work-based learning experience. So my hope is that the program will help with that. So we'll see what happens when we get like our first student and we can actually roll this out. But you can see there some of the criteria. That's not everything, but that's the bulk of it that you see there in the bullet points on the slide. Okay, so we do have a couple more slides, but does anybody have any questions? Anything that I missed or that you want to talk about? This link here is really great. Community partnerships for student experiences. So I've taken all the context that we have currently from Pathway OS / Transio, and then previous context we had from job shadowing experiences over the years from our students, put them into a spreadsheet, categorize whether or not they have clearances, the required clearances and the required disclosure statement. It has contact information, county location. So if you see something in there where the person already has clearances and you think your student wants to shadow there for job shadowing, or you think they could do a work-based learning experience, work with their counselor, use this list as like a guide, because we are working with some of these companies, specifically the ones that are noted on the spreadsheet as being in the Pathway OS program. So some of them are not fully vetted if it shows they don't have clearances, but they are in our system. So it's easier for us to make contact with them. I think there's like 30 organizations across the state in there with 60 contacts. So some organizations have more than one contact that said that they're willing to work with our students. So take a look at that if you get some time. There's really great information in there and possible opportunities for your kids. So just something to keep in mind. This slide is just resources. Everything that you could possibly want essentially is either in this Career Readiness Padlet and or in the Staff Resource Center within the CEW Career Readiness folder. So anything you could want, if you open up this Padlet, there's even a link here for the Schoology course that I was just talking about. So if you look in the second column under program resources, at the very bottom, you can see stuff about SWAG. And then the very next little bubble there is the Staff Resource Center, the Career Readiness folder. So anything you want is going to be in here. So I encourage you to like bookmark this and reference this. There's information about dual credit that you can share directly with your students. This graphic on the far right-hand side under dual credit and industry credentials column. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. You can take this, copy the link and share it with your kids. This is all public knowledge. This is for the students. Okay. And then the pathway graphic or guide, whatever you want to refer to it as, is also really great. There's a QR code there. They can scan that. They can click on each of the different 16 pathways. And when they click on it, it'll direct them to more information about that specific pathway, tells them what classes they should be taking, which are course guides that I created with Katie Hiles, and the counselors I'm trying to get them to finalize them just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But there's a little option that says click here to see when you should take your courses. It tells them like in there, like what industry credentials are available and stuff like that. Some of these may need some slight updates, but the information is still good that's on here. Like I see some spacing issues, but nothing crazy. Okay, so that's that. But yes, this Padlet is really great. And there's that pathway guide to graduation that we just looked at, the Act 158 toolkit, all kinds of stuff that you can have and review at your leisure or when you need to reference something. Okay, so I've talked a lot. We're almost out of time. Let me see if there's anything left. So that's it. Here, stop sharing for a second. Okay, I've taken up most of our time. I apologize, but are there any general questions? Need to find out how many credit hours they get for dual credit. I have an email about that. And I'll add that to the slides. I'm making a note. And then there's another question about PASA, right? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, whoever that was, sorry.
Sorry. Laura,
I'm
I have
just-
a lot of students that have jobs.
Yeah.
So they can use the industry credentials from their jobs in their pathway, right?
What do you mean by that?
Like my one student works at McDonald's and he just did a training on safe food and handling, but that it doesn't align to his career pathway. I'm not gonna lie. He wants to be a public speaker.
Then no. Unfortunately, if it doesn't align with the pathway, there's really no way for us to justify giving credit for that. If he provided us with the proof that he completed the certification, we could keep it on record and maybe we can find a way to justify that, but we would definitely need a copy of the certification
Okay.
before we could really do anything, because we need to verify that they did in fact complete those hours.
Okay.
Karen, sorry.
He could be a public speaker for McDonald's.
He could.
Yeah, we could probably tweak that, but we definitely need a
Yes.
copy of the completed credential certification, whatever it is, so we can look at it. Because there are, through the state, there's different codes
Mhm.
that tell you what pathway goes where, what certification goes with which pathway. So there's like food serve and there's all
Yeah.
kinds of like, there's different OSHA ones. Some of them we're already using, some of them we aren't. But then there's a category that's like, we don't know what this is, but that doesn't mean it doesn't count. It's just, we
Yeah.
have to figure out how we're going to label it in PIMS when we're reporting for students.
Yeah. That's
It's a little dicey.
that's going to be the case for like a lot of the special ed students. That's why I asked. Like a lot of my students have jobs, but they don't align with their career pathways, but they
Yeah.
do like industry recognized credentials when they're doing their trainings at their job.
Yeah, so we'd have to see like, again, that certificate of completion to verify, that it is in fact a legitimate, which I'm sure it is, especially if it's like any sort of food service type of credential, because a lot of those take several hours to complete. I don't even know how long, but like all these OSHA ones are like 10 hours or more. They're supposed to be 10, but it takes our students 15 to 25 hours is what we're seeing for runtime. But yeah, that's good questions, Val. Get the documentation. Let's work with the school counselor and see what we can get to count. Okay, that'll be our first step for you to get that documentation and then meet with the counselor.
Okay, Val, get the pig. Let's go.
Get the pay.
Oh,
Who
okay.
else has
You were,
something?
you
Yeah.
were, stop the recording
Yeah.
before I go get him.
Okay, but does anyone else have anything else before we get the pig? Okay, let me just stop this. And